Hello, friends. Welcome into Happy Hour. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Herman NFL. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you for all your support, and thank you for making Pack a Day part of your daily routine. Maybe I don't know if you guys, there we go. I don't know if you guys could still hear me, but I think we're good to go now. Appreciate you guys again being here. We've got a lot to chat about. Really, really excited for this weekend. Obviously, we got one more college football playoff game tonight, 2 playoff games tomorrow, 3 on Sunday, including Packers, Eagles, and then Monday Night Football. Should be a really, really fun next 4 days. It was a great start last night with Notre Dame and Penn State. That was a really fun game. Hopefully that's a harbinger of things to come. But yeah, really, really excited about this playoff weekend. Really excited about Green Bay. I think they have every right to go and win this game. I'm sure we're going to talk about a variety of different angles in this game, but really, really interesting matchup. I do think Philly has more avenues for success. Screw that. Who cares? Go out, win the game, play aggressive. And I want to see Matt LaFleur and this team just come out. The lame cliche, all gas, no break. They need it in this game. They need it this week. That's how they have to play. And I'm really excited to see how this team responds to a little bit more, recent adversity with a couple of losses right before the start of the playoffs. I got about 45 minutes here, guys, just as a heads up. I will get to all of the super chats for sure. I will get to as many member chats and regular chats as we can possibly get to over the course of the next 45 minutes-ish. And then, we'll get out of here. And I'm hoping to do, if possible, some sort of pregame show on Sunday, but for sure we'll do a live postgame show one way or the other. Let's start right away with Ben. Won't really be involved because of work at this coffee shop, but boy, I'm getting tired of the love criticisms. As he not performed up to the Super Bowl level we expected? No, but he's also been better than many realize. He is the guy, can become an outstanding quarterback if his health is consistent and can settle in. I'll die on that hill and defend my quarterback because he seems like an excellent guy and teammate. Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit soon to sort of jump to any Jordan Love conclusions on, especially on this season. This season's been a weird one in a variety of different ways. You have a little bit of a holdout at the beginning from Jordan because of the contract situation. There's a little bit of, minor injury stuff in training camp. Doesn't play, all but 3 snaps in preseason, and then comes out against Philly, plays okay in that game. Couple throws here, there that he'd probably like to have back. And then immediately has the MCL injury. Looks like he might be lost for the season. Probably comes back a little bit too soon, which might be the overarching theme of this season, is maybe a few guys coming back just a little bit too soon. Struggles early against Minnesota, comes back, puts a pretty big game together overall, but they can't win that game. Then, eventually starts kind of looking like himself again. Then against Jacksonville, has another, groin injury that limits him. Doesn't look like himself against Detroit. Comes back from the bye week, puts together a pretty good string of games overall. And we're starting to feel like, all right, this is Jordan Love again. This is who we were sort of expecting to see all season long. Felt like Jordan, looked like Jordan. And then you sort of got to, really just the last 2 games. And I know that there was the Saints game wasn't anything, but he knew he didn't need to be Superman in that game. He just played efficient, easy football. And then, the Minnesota and Chicago games, and really the Chicago game, he only played, a quarter and a half in that one. So it's not even like he got to finish that one out. And then all of a sudden he's out of the game, has another injury. And now we're here with the elbow injury going into the postseason. But, it's just been sort of this up and down sort of bizarro season. It's hard to really evaluate everything as of right now. I do think this is a big game for Jordan. When you're a big time QB, you need to make your money in big time games, and it doesn't get any bigger. Well, it does if you're in a Super Bowl, NFC Championship game, or divisional round game, I suppose. But this is a huge game for him. His last playoff throw was a really bad interception in that 49ers game. I'm sure he's going to want to get that taste out of his mouth. And we're going to go see if he can go and put on a show and be the guy that gets Green Bay a win in this game. And I'm not saying he needs to be or has to be. There are avenues for success where Green Bay, or I should say where Jordan Love plays a good game, not a great game, and Green Bay still wins. But it'd be pretty awesome if he just went out and had a great game. And that's the reason that they won this game. I would love to see that from your franchise QB. But to jump to any conclusion of he's not the guy, he's a bum, he's just mediocre, I think you really need to track, the quarterbacks in the NFL over, a long period of time. There are going to be these blips in the radar. And we are very used to the standard of excellence that Aaron and Brett have set over a 30-year period of time. Even with Brett, there were some bumps in the road in some of those seasons. But those are Hall of Fame, top 15, top 20 quarterbacks of all time. And in Aaron's case, probably even better than that. Maybe in Brett's case too. That's a tough standard to live by. I would challenge you to go out and outside of again, the top 2 or 3 guys, even Mahomes, as of late, been a bit more pedestrian in some of his numbers. So it's tough. It's tough out there for a QB, especially when you're banged up, not 100%, don't have that rhythm and timing with your wide receivers. But this is a big game for Jordan. But I definitely agree with you, Ben. I don't think any conclusion should be jumped to at this point. I still think he's a really good quarterback. This is a big game for him, but he's got a very bright future still. And even if he has a, nondescript or even poor game in this one, still very bullish on what Jordan can be for this franchise and for this team moving forward. Still, I would expect him to have a very big 2026. Eli, would you think Goot would entertain bringing back Tay this offseason? Jets maybe cut him if Rodgers retires. I do think there's a really good chance that Devante Adams does not play with the Jets next year and ends up with another team. If I'm Goot, I guess the first thing we don't know, right, is where did those 2 leave off when they left? Was it amicable? Was there a lot of friction and frustration? Even if there was, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't, mend those fences. I think if you're Goody, you at least have to have the conversation. And if he'd be interested in coming back to Green Bay, he was on Kay Adams today and kind of talking about that. He had to, kind of beat around the bush a little bit because he's not a free agent. He plays for the Jets. I think he sees the writing on the wall too, that he's probably not going to be back. But there's an interesting scenario to be had there. If he does get released and he's a free agent, he doesn't count towards the comp pick formula. Not that that's going to matter for Green Bay really this offseason at all. But I think if you're Goody, you at least talk about it. You at least consider it. You at least have a conversation with the agent. Do I expect it to happen? No. Would I be for it? Probably, yeah, if they could get into a good spot. But they're going to have to figure out what they want to do in that receiver room, what the sort of prognosis is for Christian Watson, what they do or what their plan to do in the draft is at wide receiver. There's some things that they're going to have to figure out, but I certainly would not hate it if that's the direction that it ended up in. I don't really see that being the ultimate destination for Devante and don't really expect him to be back in Green Bay, but certainly would not hate it if that came to fruition. Will the offense be prepared for both zone and man this time against Philly? Unlike when somehow both Matt LaFleur and Saleh never saw it coming against Minnesota when freaking Peter Bukowski did. Yes, they will be prepared for everything in this game. It's a postseason. If they're not, and there's something like that again, we're going to have problems. But I think they'll be prepared for everything. I think you're going to expect a very Fangio-esque defense with a smattering of man coverage here and there. But yeah, they're going to have to be prepared for everything. And Philly's going to throw, I'm sure, the kitchen sink at them, especially when you do, basically announce to the world of we didn't see that stuff coming. All right, well, if I'm the defensive coordinator for the opposing team, I'm going to throw some stuff on you that we haven't even ever put on tape. I'm going to throw some new stuff at you that, is maybe a little bit different just to kind of mess with you. I might throw that at you early so you don't know what's going to happen the rest of the game. So yeah, I would expect Fangio to be multiple in his approach, and I would expect Matt LaFleur and company to be very, very ready for that. All right, Almighty Supremo, and I think this year is Love experimenting what he can and can't do before the bye being too risky and post-bye not taking enough risk. I think he finds that perfect balance next season. I think there's maybe a little bit something to that of trying to find that sweet spot. I think he found it at the end of last year, though, so I think he should sort of know it. I think it's a little bit more than that, where I think everything within this offense, from play calling to design to route running and anticipation to accuracy from Jordan to pass protection, to all of it needs to go hand in hand. And we haven't really seen that all come together as of yet. So I don't think it's just on Jordan, but I think he knows it. I think he's lived it in the end of 2023. Now he just has to go out and execute it. But I think there's a little bit something to that of maybe trying to be a little bit too perfect right now. And I think he needs to just get back to letting that ball rip when the time is right, not still taking late chances. That's usually where he gets into trouble, but still playing within the structure of the offense. That's what needs to get done. I'm hopeful of it. Still very high on Jordan. Think he has a good game this week, but we will see. And we'll definitely be able to talk about it afterward, one way or the other, depending on what happens in this game. That was the least testy Matt LaFleur I've seen at a Friday press conference this year. Hopefully it's a sign he'll stay loose this week. I think he's well aware, and I think he's sending a message to his team. No fear. We're good to go. We're ready. We flushed these past couple weeks. We're excited. We're going to stay loose. And I think that's, he's leading by example with that is my guess. And I don't think anyone needs a cloud hanging over this team or any bad vibes. And I think he's, exercising that and saying, I'm going to lead by example. We're going to go have fun. We're going to go play aggressive, and we're going to go win this game. You could tell that vibe from Matt. If it carries down to his team, I like Green Bay's chances, because when they're playing like that, they are a very difficult team to beat. I think they've been a little bit too tight in some of their big games this year. Still a really, really good football team. They just need to go out, play loose, and execute. Aiden, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that a ton. Feel like Hafley has been saving something. Yeah, I think these past couple weeks has been, especially against Chicago, has been a little bit more vanilla, excuse me, ish. But yeah, I don't know. I would be surprised if there's like this, new formation, new set, new, style of defense, anything like that. Do I think he probably has a couple of, unique blitzes in his back pocket for some key moments? Yeah, probably. He's probably got a couple things up his sleeve. But I think for the most part, we're going to see the style of defenses this Packers team has played over the second half of the season. They've mostly had success with it. Yes, Detroit put up some points on them. Spoiler alert, Detroit puts up points on everyone. Outside of that, they've been very successful with it. And I expect Green Bay to go out and have a very good game defensively, be able to hang with Philly, and hopefully keep them in the mid-20s or below, and give this offense, Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love, a real chance to go out and get a win in this game. Jay, glad you were able to make it for the start. And yes, X going to give it to you. All-Pro Xavier McKinney. You absolutely love to see it. He's earned it. He deserves it. And he's been a huge find. And it's fun to go back. I was looking at some of my notes and some of my videos, at the beginning of free agency, we did a video here of like that Xavier McKinney is the perfect fit for Jeff Hafley's defense. And he makes so much sense for Green Bay to go after in free agency. Even with that stuff being said at the time, it's hard to imagine a world in which he fits this perfectly and plays this well in his first season. He's been above advertised. He's been awesome. And like I said, certainly deserving of that first team All-Pro nod. I feel like Wicks is about to have a huge game. His hands have been very reliable lately. Jasmine, I'm with you. I'm very much with you. Now, to be very clear, I have predicted a Dontavian Wicks breakout game for now 18 weeks in a row. That's not totally true, but there's some level of truth to that, I think. So why not? Let's just go for 19 weeks in a row for Dontavian Wicks. But listen, he's a great separator. We know that. I think he led the league in separation rate this year. They got to find him. They got to get it to him in stride. Wicks has got to make the play. We know he has run after the catch potential. To me, this is a very, very important game for Dontavian Wicks. Goes the same for Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed and really all the playmakers, really everyone, but you get my point. But to me, Wicks has the ability to beat this Eagles secondary regardless of the matchups. He can win. He's a great route runner. He needs to be Bret Hart in this one, the excellence of execution, and go out and play his best version of football. And if so, he's going to have a big game. Jordan's got to find him, and hopefully he can be a real difference maker against Philly and their really, really good secondary. All right, Isaiah, folks don't even realize that we're getting 5 guys back. Yeah, there's a lot of injury returns in this one from Quay Walker in all likelihood, Evan Williams, Andre Dillard, Brenton Cox, Romeo Doubs. So yeah, 5 guys right there. Hopefully TJ Slayton's still good to go. Unfortunately, it looks like Zane Anderson probably is going to be a no-go in this one, but Green Bay is going to get some reinforcements. Also, Edgerrin Cooper played 11 snaps against Philly week 1. Carrington Valentine played 9 and Evan Williams played 0. So those 3 playmakers on defense played a combined 20 snaps against Philly in week 1. I do think that has the ability to be a big difference maker this time around as they go to Philly and take them on in the wild card round. Best player props to bet on this game. Ralph, your guess is as good as mine. Usually what I recommend to you, if I make a recommendation, do the opposite. But I like Dontavian Wicks's numbers in this game. I also like AJ Brown's. I think his numbers are pretty low for receptions in this one, and I would still expect him to have a pretty big performance for Philly. So I think there's some AJ Brown ones out there. I think there's some Dontavian Wicks one, and those are kind of the two. I think Jake Elliott too for field goals is another one I was looking at. I expect Philly to be able to put up points in this game, but I do think Green Bay is going to hold them to some field goal attempts, and he's a really good kicker, so he's usually going to convert those. I'd be pretty surprised if he doesn't get at least 2 field goal attempts in this game, and usually he's going to put those through the uprights. So those are just a kind of a few that I've been kind of looking at. But like I said, go the opposite direction usually when I make a recommendation on that stuff. I heard Adams wants to come back. Let's get him at least. He can catch open passes. It wasn't that aggressive. In fact, when asked if he would be willing to, sort of come back to Green Bay, there was sort of like a long pause. And then he's like, yeah, I'm, kind of open. And, again, he couldn't really say much because he's still a member of the Jets. He's not a free agent. So there's a level of complication there, but he at least kept an open mind to it. We'll put it that way. Who do you think takes Christian Watson's spot on the 53 when he goes on IR? I don't know. It's really weird that they haven't made any transactions as of yet, but I would say the two that make sense are Omar Brown and Sean Clifford. Give yourself the emergency third quarterback, especially with two quarterbacks being a little bit banged up. And then Omar Brown is been somebody that's been able to come in and help them a little bit, specifically on teams. Zane Anderson still not playing in this one. So that would be my prediction is Omar Brown and Sean Clifford get that spot. And then maybe at some point they fill those two practice squad spots. Finally able to make a happy hour in a way. I kind of like watching the Packers with lower expectations as opposed to the 2020, 2022 Packers with super high expectations. Yeah, every single time. Give me the low expectation Packers, every single one. It's a more relaxing and fulfilling way to watch it. That's why the team that ultimately lost in the NFC Championship game, the interception to Corey Webster against the Giants in the freezing cold, was still one of my favorite seasons because there was not a ton of expectations. That was a 13-3 Packers team. One of my all-time favorite wins in the playoffs against Seattle. Just still sick to my stomach. They couldn't pay that off with an NFC Championship game run. But yeah, when you play with fewer expectations, there's definitely a little bit more of a level of fun to it that can come, especially when you go on around 2010. Obviously, there was some expectations going into that year, not really Super Bowl expectations, but when you go on that run at the end, it makes it that much more magical. So hopefully Green Bay can go on that magical run to end this season and make it one of those ones to really remember. Do we think our team is better this year than they were last year heading into the playoffs? Lots of injuries right now. It's interesting that you say that, Grant, because really, if you kind of think about it, there's 4 injuries and Marshawn Lloyd is a rotational running back, and we don't even know where he would be in that pecking order if he would be healthy, but at best a number 2 back. And it's not like you're hurting for backs in this game. Jordan Morgan, quite frankly, probably should be your 6th offensive lineman. I don't think he overtakes any of the starting 5 based on how he played early in the season. You'd love to have him as depth, but Sean Ryan's been playing really good football. That's who he was rotating with. And Sean Ryan's just been really good as of late. So you're really not missing anything there. And it's really just 2 guys, Jair Alexander and Christian Watson. And I'm not saying that those 2 players are not very important to this team. They very much are. But if you were to tell me, quite frankly, that I could sign up at the beginning of the year that really Green Bay would only have 2 injuries. And again, you can put Lloyd and Morgan in there if you want, but like those 2 injuries, on IR going into the playoffs, there's a lot worse things that could happen. Look at Detroit, for instance. Just Aiden Hutchinson alone is more valuable than probably, all of Green Bay's injuries combined. Like there could be worse. Christian Darrisaw for Minnesota is a massive injury loss for them. Probably more, or at least in the same vicinity as probably Jair Alexander and Christian Watson combined. So there are injuries, but I don't think it's catastrophic. Like everyone has some stuff apparently, except for Philly, who is extremely healthy at the moment, which is annoying, but just is what it is. So yeah, I don't think injuries are of like a massive concern. You'd still love to have Jair and Watson. As far as how they're playing, it's just a little bit of a different vibe where Green Bay was going into the playoffs with momentum and, again, kind of having that feel of house money. There's still, I think, expectations on this team. They're coming off a 2-game losing streak. But what I'll say is we're about to find out, for all of the stuff of, frustration with LaFleur or Jordan Love or, where this team is at, how you compare them to last season. Like, let's just see where this ends up first. If they lose 42-0 to the Eagles, that's a very different conversation than if they go on a 4-game winning streak and win the Super Bowl, right? Like there are very differing versions of how this season ends up. Could be get just completely crushed by Philly, could win a Super Bowl, or anything in between. So let's let that play out a little bit more before we start making any sort of conclusions. But as far as like going into this, I think Green Bay has a little bit more of a talented roster than they did at this point last year. I think it would be a really fun game. I would love to see 2023 Packers that went against Dallas versus 2024 Packers that are going against Philadelphia. That'd be a really fun matchup. I think maybe last year's was just playing a little bit better. It was in a little bit better rhythm. I think this is a little bit better of a roster, but it's close. It would be a very fun matchup. Very, very close comparison. Think Musgrave becomes a deep threat this offense needs? I do not. I think that is a pie in the sky thinking. I mean, does the Musgrave even have, he had the one where Musgrave stayed on his feet moment, but what was his long? I think that was probably like his long this year is 19 yards. So to say that now I know he only has 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10 targets on the season, but his long is 19 yards on the year. Trying to see if we have his long last year. How is it on their stats, but not this one? That doesn't make any sense. All right, give me 1 second. This should have it. So yeah, this year the long was 19 yards. Last year, it was 37 yards, 38 yards. He had a 38-yarder against Dallas, 37-yarder against Chicago, 36-yarder against Pittsburgh. So a player that in his career, his long reception is 38 yards against the Cowboys last year. No, I would not expect him to all of a sudden become this reliable deep threat for Green Bay. I talked about this a few times this week. The idea of Luke Musgrave at this point is better than the reality of Luke Musgrave. Listen, he's a 4.6 40 guy at tight end. He's not a very nuanced route runner, doesn't gain a ton of separation, and is a little bit clumsy after the catch. I like Musgrave. I think he can be a good player in this offense, but to expect him to just become a deep threat or somebody that's challenging deep down the field consistently, I think that is probably misguided at best. And yeah, I don't see that happening. I would love to be wrong, but number one, that's usually not the primary thing for a tight end. Number two, he hasn't shown the ability to do that. And again, 37-yard long in his career so far. How do you think Matt has handled expectations? Do you think Matt learns from his mistakes? Thanks. Well, we're about to find out. I think it's interesting in the fact that it feels like he's kind of taken a step backwards this year with some of the mistakes, the fourth down decisions, the challenges, the game management stuff, all stuff that if you would have asked me in his first handful of seasons, I would have said he does a great job with all of that stuff. This year, he is not. So I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure what the thinking is. I'm not sure if he wants to be more conservative with this team. It's been odd, but I do think he will learn, especially from this past game. I do think there will be lessons that he learns there. And then as far as handling expectations, I think the team on the whole, I mean, it's tough. They were 11-4. They had already clinched either the 6 or 7 seed. There wasn't a ton to play for. I think we're going to learn again a lot about this team against Philly this week. If they lose this game, I think they did not live up to expectations. I think this is a disappointing season to go 0-6 in big games, lose your first round playoff game, go 1-5 in the division. That's all very disappointing. So I think we're about to find out if they've handled expectations well and if they can go into this game and pick up a win. And if so, I think at minimum, you ended up in a very similar spot as you were a season ago. You didn't take a step back, but you didn't take a step forward. They lose this game. I think it'd be pretty easy to say this team took at least a small step back and didn't really have that growth that we were maybe hoping and expecting in 2024. So I think there's a lot kind of riding on this game just from answering that question as to whether or not they lived up to expectations, how he's handled it, and what this team kind of needs and looks for in this offseason, again, dependent upon what happens in this game and through the remainder of the playoffs. I got a Packers onesie for my trip to Green Bay in April. I love that for you, Game Boy. Wear the hell out of that thing, my friend. What are the odds of Packers going on T. Higgins this offseason? I think extremely, extremely slim. I would not want that either. I mean, the dude is really banged up quite a bit. Doesn't always stay healthy. He's a really good wide receiver, but you're talking about a massive, massive, massive contract. That's not the situation that where I would go if I were Green Bay. I think there's probably better ways to spend that money, but yeah, I would not expect it. Would not expect it at all. So I want to hear fans hoping we don't have to face Hurts due to injury. Go beat them at 100% and put some fear into the Lions for next week. Yeah, listen, I will never begrudge a fan for saying, hey, by any means necessary, I don't care who's playing or not playing. I just want to get to that next game and get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. And we're not going to apologize for anything along the way. So I can understand it, but I'm more of your thinking, Lucas, of let both teams be healthy. May the best team win, and may Green Bay show up, kick Eagles right in the face, and then go and beat Detroit, beat hopefully Minnesota, or I guess not. I don't want Minnesota to be in that game just because I don't want it's just too much pressure in that game. I don't want Minnesota to even have a chance at the Super Bowl, but then beat who's ever remaining on that side, go win a Super Bowl, do it, become legendary, do it by beating the best teams, not by getting lucky with a smattering of injuries along the way. Jaden Reed is going to need to get more involved and have a big game like he did in week 1 for us to have a chance at winning. Ben, wholeheartedly agree. The Whiteout Room must raise the bar on Sunday. Isaiah, wholeheartedly agree. This will be the first time we have Valentine, X, Williams, Bull, and Nixon, along with Quay and Cooper. This is by far our best setup on defense. Going to be fun to watch. I think the other thing that's on top of that over the hill games is that it solidifies everything. You don't have to have a ton of movement. You don't have to put Bullard back at safety and then in the slot, and safety and slot and safety and slot. Just keep Evan Williams back at safety. Just put Bullard in the slot. You don't have to move Nixon from slot to outside, and so on and so forth. Just keep Nixon and Valentine on the outside, Bullard in the slot, Williams and McKinney at safety. Just keep Cooper and Quay along the linebacker position. Bring one linebacker in base. Choose between Isaiah McDuffie and Eric Wilson, whoever you want as your third linebacker in base defense. Rotate your ends, rotate your tackles, and go from there. That should be your very simplified, easy lineup on defense this week. 24-23 Packers outsider. I like that. My prediction, I did give my prediction on the radio today, but we'll get to it in our pregame show for Sunday. Go Pack, go. The nerves are really starting to kick in, Andy. I know we definitely have a fighter's chance. How are you feeling about our odds here? Yeah, I think Green Bay wins 35 out of 100 matchups here. I think they got maybe 35, 38, maybe 40% chance to win this game, which isn't bad. You're going on the road. That's to be expected. It's going to be tough. You're the 7 seed. They're the 2. They're expected to win. I think that's a fair assessment. I think Philly has more avenues for success in this one, but do I think Green Bay can go in there, punch him in the face like they did Dallas last year, get out early, sustain a lead, play a good brand of football? I really do. It's up to them. Going to be totally up to them. We know that we at least believe that they're capable of doing it. Haven't shown it at a high level this season when they've had these big time matchups, but I think they're due. Nothing else they're due. I would have been, if you would have told me that they went 0-6 in big time games, I would have been like, there's no chance. So I think they lost all 5 of their big games so far, so that now they can go on a 4-game big game winning streak. Hopefully end the season 4-5 in big games and win a Super Bowl along the way. Green Bay and Philly's O's are similar in terms of yards and points. However, the Eagles have only played 1 top 7 defense and 3 top 14 defenses. The Pack have faced 5 top 7s and 9 top 14s. Eagles O will look bad. I think the Eagles O could look bad if Green Bay plays well on defense. Like, they're going to have to hold up their end of the bargain. I think they are much better. I love what Jeff Hafley's doing with this defense, but we even saw against Chicago, again, it's not an A+ level game or anything like that, but we saw against Chicago that in clutch moments, they were a little, as the kids would say, sus at times in that game. I think in those clutch moments, they need to be better. I think on the whole, Green Bay can hang. I think they can limit. I think, if you said Philly's around 23, 24 points in this game, I think that feels about right. I think that gives Green Bay's offense a real opportunity to win. But I think the Mendoza line in this one is around 23, 24 points. If it's below that, I love Green Bay's chances. And I mean, I love Green Bay's chances. If it's right at that 23, 24 points, I think Green Bay's got it's a coin flip. Green Bay's got a real chance to go out there, put up, 25, 26, 27 points and win the game. And if you said it's more than that, if Philly's in the 27, 28, 31, 35 range, something like that, I think it's going to be very difficult for Green Bay to win. So I'm looking at that 23 to 24 point range for Philly. If they're right around there or below, really, really like Green Bay's chances in this game. Andy, I smell a Bullard pick 6 Sunday. Remember where you heard this first. All right. So Turtles, you got it. I will try to remember my best. You come in the post-game show, remind me, and we'll shout you out when it happens. Over the Hill Games thinks Bullard's getting a pick as well. So all right, we got some vibes going for Javon Bullard. Keyshawn Nixon has as many sacks this year as Lucas Van Ness. I will say I really like this last week's game from Lucas Van Ness, and I do think he's really improved against the run. From a pass rush standpoint, it's been not great. You would like to see a little bit more impact there. Hasn't happened, but I do think he's made a legitimate step as a run defender, especially this past week. He was really good against the run and setting the edge. But yeah, you would like to see him gain that excuse me, a little bit more of a pass rush skill set moving forward. Ideally sooner rather than later, but at least going into 2025, this next offseason. Needs to put a better pass rush plan together. Same size as JJ Watt, can bat down passes, better bull rusher. I think you can use him a little bit inside as a, as a situational pass rusher, but I actually don't think that his skill set is really made for that quite as much. I think going against bigger offensive linemen in the run game, he would certainly struggle on the inside. And then, where LVN gets slowed down is really as soon as he makes contact. Where you want LVN living is kind of on the edges so that he has more space to operate and he can use some of his athleticism to kind of go and chase things down or kind of, try to work his way around the bend or whatever it might be. But the sooner he makes contact with somebody, the whole issue with his game is he doesn't know how to get off of blocks right now. So now if you're on the interior, you're getting up there, you're immediately contacted. You don't have that ability to kind of run up and use that, speed to power as much as he does on the outside. And now you're just getting him sooner into contact with the, bigger, more physical offensive guard. I'm not sure that that's the world that he wants to be living in. I would keep him at edge. I would keep him as a rotational player. I would play him a lot more on early downs to be a really strong, edge setter and run defender. But yeah, could you use him there somewhat? Sure. But I don't think that there's all of a sudden this solution of you're just going to all of a sudden unlock all of his superpowers by putting him inside. I think his skill set doesn't actually play very well to that because, again, you're just contacting bigger offensive linemen quicker. That's not where you really want him trying to find success. How's Quay? You think he will be out there on Sunday? He practiced for a third consecutive day. We'll get the final injury report. I don't think it's come out yet. I haven't had a chance to look. Usually, sometime around 3 is when it comes out. So there we go. A final injury report. Zane Anderson is out for the game. Christian Watson is out for the game. Brenton Cox, Andre Dillard, TJ Slayton, Quay Walker, and Evan Williams are all listed as questionable. For Philadelphia, Trevor Keegan and Byron Young are listed as out. No other injury status whatsoever for them. So again, Zane Anderson, Christian Watson out. Brenton Cox, Andre Dillard, TJ Slayton, Quay Walker, and Evan Williams all listed as questionable. Williams, Walker, Slayton, Dillard, or I should say Cox, were all limited participants. Dillard was a full participant. So Dillard for sure seems good to go. And the fact that Cox, Slayton, or I should say Cox, Walker, and Williams practiced all week and Slayton practiced the last 2 days, I would assume those guys are all going to be good to go, but there is your final injury report for Sunday. Over the Hill's calling it. Quay's going to play. Am I crazy? But Jordan Love has not been bad. And can I add that the Packers might be sandbagging? I hope you're right, but I agree. Has not been bad. There's no world in which Jordan Love has been bad. Maybe not quite as good as we were hoping for or expecting on this season. That's a fair assessment, but in no world has he been a bad quarterback. All right. Andy, do you think we need an alpha receiver to get to the Super Bowl? I tend to think we do. No, I don't think you need an alpha to get there. I just think they need their current wide receivers to play better. I think that to me is the bigger thing. I think if you get good Romeo Doubs, good, ideally Christian Watson, but good Romeo Doubs, good Dontavian Wicks, and good Jaden Reed with good Tucker Kraft, good Josh Jacobs, that to me is by far and away a good enough 5-man weaponry group. Not to mention the depth that they have at running back, Luke Musgrave, Bo Melton, those sort of players. I think that that's enough, but they need the best versions of those players, the versions that we've seen play really good football. If it's going to be inconsistent Wicks, inconsistent Reed, and inconsistent Dobbs, it's not going to be good enough to get it done. They just need to be the good versions of themselves. If they're all of that, I think they have more than enough weapons. If they play like they have this season and bend those inconsistent versions of themselves, then I don't even know that I necessarily know that they need like an alpha. They just need to find some consistency within that wide receiver group. If that's an alpha, great, but they just need to find it somehow, some way. And that to me is my bigger concern, not needing this superstar at wide receiver. If you can find it, great. That's awesome. If one of these guys can become it, even better. But they just need good to really good play from the guys that they have. That I would prefer that over anything, to be honest. All right. Anyone who says Jordan Love has been bad is just a fair weather fan. Fair enough. Hey, Andy, happy playoff Friday. Go Pack Go. 0-0 on the season. Let's get this W. I am with you, Dave. Brand new season starting. I'm pumped for it. Let's start at 1-0 and get this thing headed in the right direction. Sorry if I missed it. Haven't seen much this week. What's the projected injury report? We just went over that. people just look at his stats and see that he threw less touchdowns this year. Well, he also missed 3 games basically. And we had Josh Jacobs run for 15 touchdowns. Of course, Love will have less passing touchdowns. It's a good way to look at it, Professor Cakes. AJ Brown at 5.5 catches. You can take the under on that. All right. There you go, Nate. I like your confidence in this one. Why does it feel like Love is back in a just let it rip state again? Feels like all the interceptions at the beginning of this year has him gun shy. Like he doesn't want to be the reason we lose. I wish he was in a let it rip state right now. I think that's where he needs to get to. And kind of what we talked about earlier, I think there's a little bit of him trying to find that sweet spot right now, trying to figure out the perfect balance between game manager and gunslinger. And it's a fine line. And sometimes it takes a little bit to get in that sweet spot. Hopefully this is the week that he finds that sweet spot. Take the over on Musgrave, 1.5 catches. All right. Interesting one there. Definitely blitz more due to the Eagles O-line being studs. I think they'll blitz more than they did in week 1. I think they'll recognize that they can't just let Jalen Hurts beat them from the pocket. So I do expect to see a bit more aggressiveness from them in that regard. Wicks's hands have always been reliable. It's his eyes that have strayed from the ball. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at it a little bit more. It probably is more of a concentration thing, but I'd have to go back and look at it and then look at his drops to make a commentary on that. Excited to see what Bo Melton and Malik Heath can do with their opportunities. They should definitely get more of them, and hopefully they make the most of them. That'd be awesome. I'm a big Bo Melton guy. He needs to go out and have a big game. I think he showed he's very capable last season. We haven't seen that breakout game this year. Hopefully this is the one. Should Brenton Cox be a full-time starter because he has the highest pass rush win rate on the team the last few weeks? Yeah, I talked about this, or actually, maybe I talked about it on the radio show. I can't remember where I did, but I think it should be Brenton Cox and Rashawn Gary as your starters on the outside, with LVN being your third guy and Igbare being the fourth and maybe only playing like 10 to 12 snaps at most in a situational role. And then I don't need to see really any Aaron Mosby. That's how I would probably do it. So Cox and Gary as your starters, LVN your top rotating guy, and then just a smattering of snaps for Igbare, none for Mosby. That's how I would split those up. I love my Green Bay Packers. Me too, New York Cheesehead. How is it fair? A worse record division winner gets a home playoff game, but also gets a higher draft pick than the better record wildcard team? It's not. It needs to be fixed, in my opinion. Will Matt LaFleur go more to 85 and 88 in the passing game? Just depends on how Philly plays them defensively. I don't know that 88 is going to be a major target in this game, but I do think Tucker Kraft could have a very big role in this game. But again, it's going to be dependent upon how Philly plays it, how the game goes. You know, are they having success running the football? How many times do they need to throw? There's a lot of things that are going to be up in the air in this one, but it's going to be very dependent upon how Philly attacks them defensively. Malik Heath legacy game. Love that. Do you view this season as a success or failure if we lose against Philly? I would say it's closer to failure if they lose against Philly. That for me would be the answer. I talked to Jacob Westendorf on the radio today. He agreed. Talked to Sparky and Tommy on the radio today. They kind of agreed, or at least we're in a little bit in that vicinity. But yeah, I think if they lose this game, to me, again, going 1-5 in the division, 0-6 in big games, you know, losing your lone playoff game and not really seeing the progress, to me, that would be closer to failure than success. Maybe that's harsh, but I would probably be a little bit more in that range. All right. Greg, I hope we win and complete a pass on 4th and 26. Great channel, and it is appreciated. I would love some revenge for that game as well. That was one of the all-time heartbreakers. All right. I've got about 7 minutes. I'm going to get to as many member chats as I can through the remainder of this. Is Bullard safety number 4 now? I think he needs to just stick at one position for now. Yeah, I think they're going to probably keep him at slot as much as they can for the remainder of this season. And yeah, he probably is behind McKinney, Williams, might even be behind Oladapo and Zane Anderson at this point as well. He might be safety number 5 at the moment. I know they like him there. I know if they need him there, they will put him there. But I think they want to try to just keep him at one position as much as they can. Do you think the Packers will have success running between the tackles against this defense? If not, can we still fire the read end around into the depths of the sun? Yeah, I think they will have the ability to run between the tackles. I think Josh Jacobs is just that good. And as far as the, read end around, listen, I get you need to keep teams honest and utilize the width of the field as well. They need to either figure out a different way to do that or execute it better. They do need to do some of that stuff. You have to keep teams honest at all lengths and widths of the field. You really want to be able to explore every inch horizontally and every inch vertically to spread them out as much as possible and get their eyes really looking all over the field. But they've got to find a way to have that play be more successful and, before they continue to go back to it, especially the amount that they've gone to it, which has just been far too much for the level of success that they've had with it. All right. If the Packers have to lose, would you rather lose to the Eagles or to the Lions next week? If they're going to lose, I'll give me the win first. I'll take the win against Philly and then the loss against Detroit in that situation. All right. What else we got here? All right, that was a response. Is Dobbs' reliability worth more than Watson's big playability? I think it's just different. I don't know that there's I would probably rather take Watson just because I think he brings more to this team overall, even when he's not getting the ball. He's a better blocker. He's a better deep threat. He drags defenders with him to open up things underneath for everyone else. But I think Dobbs' consistency, and when he's going really good, he's still a really good wide receiver. I think there's a really good player there. It's close. I would probably take Watson, but it's probably a horse apiece. You can kind of make your pick on that one. I think Kingsley's having a bad season because, like Preston, he's good, great in a 3-4. Thoughts, Andy? Yeah, there might be a piece of that. I just don't know that either way. He's had a good year, but he probably is another one of those that is definitely much more of a better fit in a 3-4 than a 4-3. Might need to put on a little functional strength. I haven't had the opportunity to say that in a hot second, but might need to put on a little bit more strength this upcoming offseason just to be a little bit better fit in this particular defense. Hate Kirby Joseph and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Totally fair. I get that. Both very good players, though. Love will have to play smart and take what they give him. Yeah, this is going to be a grinded out game. No question about it. Autumn, I agree. I love our chances of winning this. Let's go Pack. Autumn, I love it. And I love the love pun there. If we win the toss, take the ball or defer. I want us to lose the toss. I don't even want the decision. I don't want anything to do with the decision. I want whoever it is to go out there and lose the toss. So that's the job of the whoever you think is going to be the least lucky coin toss captain. Go out there and choose whatever they think, and hopefully it's wrong. I want Philly to choose. I don't want Green Bay to overthink it. But if I were Green Bay, I would just defer. I would defer in this one. I don't think you necessarily want to go up against that Philly crowd right away on the road. I'm not going to overthink it either way, regardless of whether or not they receive or defer. But if it's me, I'm deferring, and I'm just more hoping that Philly wins the toss, and then you don't even have to make the decision in the first place. ESPN picked the Pack upset. Yeah, I know Bill Barnwell did as well. I don't know if that's the same article that you're looking at. All right. I think having Wyatt, Quay, and Williams would make a huge difference in this game. Yeah, I think so too. Especially, I think Wyatt needs to have a really big game in this one. Hoping this run defense bullies Barkley and that our offense can find a rhythm. Me too, Green Ranger. Those would be two very nice things to have happen in this game. All right. Dragon Scale, this year's team is better for me, but other teams improved too, so it appears not as impressive as we think it should be. That's a fair way of looking at it. I don't mind that at all. All right. Oh my God, Andy agreed with you. Oh, I'm so proud of you, buddy. Geez, you sound like a 15-year-old. Andy is great, but what he says is not sacrilegious. I don't know what that's in regards to. Oh, I don't know. There's some arguments, I guess. All right. Well, we don't need to go into that. Let's see. There we go, Cheddarhead. Packers by 100. Not biased. I think that's fair. Seems a little conservative to me, Cheddarhead. But I'll take it. I'll take Packers by 100, I guess. All right, friends. Oh, last one. All right, John. I'm hoping Hurts and AJ have similar issues in this game like CD and Dak did last year. Yeah. And a lot of that was because of the way that Green Bay played and putting pressure on Dallas early in that game to go match point for point. I want to see Green Bay bring it to Philly, and let's see how Philly responds to Green Bay punching them in the face. That's what I want to see in this one. All right, friends, I do got to get out of here. I appreciate you all taking the time and joining me today. Like I said, hoping to do a pregame show for sure. I will do a postgame show. Enjoy playoff weekend. Great college football game tonight. Hopefully that one is as good tonight as it was last night. 2 games tomorrow, 3 on Sunday, 1 on Monday for super wild card weekend. Should be a ton of fun. I hope you guys enjoy the hell out of it, and hopefully we get a Packers victory. I will talk to you guys all very, very soon, but until next time, and as always, go Pack, go.